There's a reason why for the last 13 years, startups overwhelmingly prefer to build on top of AWS. We have the largest number of services, making it easy for you to take on some of the biggest challenges with the smallest teams. We also have partnerships with the top VCs, accelerators, and incubators around the world, making it easier to secure your next round of funding.
I'm a solution architect with the AWS Head Start program. What we do is we work with startups in the education sector, and we help them build their services on AWS.
So We Power Tech is AWS's diversity and inclusion outreach program. The program is really twofold. One is to increase the number of underrepresented technologists within the industry, and the second is to provide a platform for them to be seen and heard.
If you're wondering how the AWS evangelism team might be able to help your startup, there are many ways. We're technically credible across our entire catalog of products, so we can help you figure out which services might be able to meaningfully impact your business. We also want to help tell your story. So if you're building something cool, we want to know about it and help spread that message to the world. So you might end up on stage at an event like AWS Summit. If you're a startup, you should also definitely check out the AWS Lofts. These are event spaces that are free to anyone with an AWS account. And you can treat them like co-working spaces, but the awesome thing about them is that we also have people like technical evangelists like myself, solutions architects that come and give hands-on technical workshops and sessions to help you learn how to more effectively utilize the AWS products and platforms that you're already building on top of.
We are a dedicated team of people that love startups, that we just want to come and help you with whatever we can, whether it be technical or business focused. We are here to help guide you and make sure that you do have a say in what's going on. We do get your feedback. We do bring that feedback to the service teams. That is what we're here for.
If you've been online recently, you may have seen our pension adverts once or twice. But did you know that Abacus offers so much more than pensions? We have over 40 years experience, and with over 10 accountants we can provide accounting, payroll and tax planning services. We also have dedicated teams with professionals in company formation, trust and estate planning, funds and family office services. Visit our website at www.abacus.gi to find out more.
Thank you for joining us. The purpose of my talk this morning is really just to give a context to what we're doing and what Think Business, Think Gibraltar really is all about.
It is part of Gibraltar's growing international appeal that we welcome people travelling from so many places across the globe to share in our events.
But I began my remarks today by noting how significant the Gibraltarian insurance market is to the ABI, but more importantly to consumers in the UK. And we remain fully supportive of this market and of the choice that it gives UK customers.
So in the context of private clients, when they're looking at a jurisdiction that is reliable, stable, safe, we think we tick those boxes quite well.
I'm very excited about it, and I think now is the time really for managers to start really looking at other alternatives other than just looking at the traditional, is it Luxembourg, is it Ireland in a post-Brexit world. I think now will be, what about Gibraltar?
Okay, then, here we go. Fantastic. So those are our sponsors. I think some of you might already know Gibraltar Finance, Abacus, and our partners at Regis. Again, super grateful that they're still supporting and trusting us in this new journey. I think there's about 16 people here, so thank you again for joining us. And Eddy Travia, who's joining us. Eddy, who is the co-founder and CEO of Coinsilium, is going to fill us in on some of the updates to do with blockchain and crypto industries. So Eddy is a pioneer investor in blockchain and Bitcoin startups since 2013. Welcome, Eddy. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Denise, for having me here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining all the way from the other side
China.
of the world, right? So how is everything going there?
Yes, I'm in the maybe enviable situation where actually life is getting back to normal here. So I'm not confined at home. I can go out anytime, and it's nice to see life, getting back. So it's good to see people around and outside going around.
Good to hear positive stuff. So Eddy, I'm just going to jump right in with the Q&A. It's a short session, and then we'd like to engage a little bit with the participants. There's been significant changes, obviously, to how we do business and how businesses survive in the past few weeks. Security, supply chains, and e-commerce are playing a much bigger role in our daily interactions. So do you think this is a precursor to the mass adoption of blockchain and crypto in a much wider market?
Yes, I think so, but obviously we're not going to get there in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I think obviously the first thing that's happening is people start relying more on technology in general, and as we can see in our lives, through this conference and through our daily lives, when we have to wait for delivery of goods, and when we start working all through conference systems and live video streaming, we can feel already there is a much heavier reliance on technology than maybe there was a few months ago before this crisis. So now, why would blockchain come into this? Well, I think that among the things that we have seen in this crisis, again, unfortunately, a bit back like in 2008, when we had purely financial crisis, nothing to do with health-related crisis, but we had a financial crisis which was all around damaged trust, right? So today, I think we're going to see a different kind of trust issue. And for example, the first trust issue that we have is to understand we have so many noise coming from experts, pseudo-experts, government authorities, or WHO, etc. We have and of course the news every day, the media showing different sides of what's going on. I think the first thing that's going to happen is who can we trust in this noise? Now, this trust today is all about information and news, but I think the trust will also come in terms of products and services, certification, provenance, and this is something where blockchain has always been very strong. So for example, I remember back in even maybe 2014, 15, some of the first companies I saw in blockchain were provenance related. So where companies were working on supply chain traceability. And I think in the next few months and in the years to come, supply chain traceability is going to be extremely important in the world. Why? Because we will not trust brands and we will not trust products the same way we do today, or we have done 2-3 months ago before this crisis. We want to know, where is this product coming from? Is it possibly contaminated, etc., etc. So I think there is a psychological element, and this psychological element to the crisis can be some of the fears can be alleviated with a decentralized system where blockchain is telling everyone, well, look, this product comes from this place, and here is a proof that it comes from there because it's on the blockchain, it's immutable, and there is a structure, an infrastructure built around that. So I think we're going to move from a heavier reliance on technology towards a new trust system for different products and services.
Okay, well, it's good to see that there are places that the adoption is necessary. Going back to your early investor days, you believed in investing in startups using blockchain. back in 2013. So, and using the technology. So what are these significant use cases during the COVID-19 crisis that you have seen are providing these solutions that you're talking about?
So among the services that I see are useful, where first of all, there's one thing everybody agrees on, is that this is a time of solidarity. This is time where people help each other. And we have invested early on in a company, for example, HelpRebit, which is doing donations through crypto. Now, the first reason why they were building kind of donation trails in crypto is because typically when there is a natural disaster or there is a man-made disaster like wars and conflicts, money doesn't get there. You know, the first ones to close are banks, and this happens a lot. And it is happening now, obviously, but for different reasons. You know, banks are closing because basically you cannot go physically to the branch, to your local branch. So HelpRebit start building this network because the resilience of crypto transactions, the resilience of the blockchain means that you can still send money to people who need it. So I would say that in the current situation where people have trouble and people need help and maybe money for medical equipment, the first application of blockchain is going to be donations, tracking donations, and making sure that whoever needs it, you know, at the end of the track gets it. So I think that's one current thing. Now, this we can link to the fact that obviously it's very difficult at the moment for people to bank. I mean, I would say in Europe in general, we are quite familiar with, you know, new mobile banking, new banks type of technological applications. So I would say in Europe, I'm pretty sure, let's say a large amount of the population knows how to deal with not using physical checks or physical cash, etc. Now, it's not the same in the US, because in the US, bank cashier checks are actually still quite heavily relied on. And people are basically used to cash. So I would say everything related to payment is one first application of blockchain. The other area of blockchain where we're going to see some applications in these times are obviously what we're doing, which is kind of remote communication and remote working. We have invested in a company called Indoors, which helps large companies like banks, like Rolls-Royce, like, you know, Fortune 500 companies, basically recruit and assess tech talent through their experts who themselves are already working remotely. Some of them are employed by very well-known companies. Some of them are maybe freelance developers, and they're going to assess the skills of this tech talent. So that's another application of blockchain, basically relying on networks of experts around the world.
Cool. Well, we've met Indoors. They were here in January. So
yes,
we're excited to see how they come out of this and if there are new opportunities also. So as recently as earlier this month, the Bank of France has been calling for applications to experiment with a central bank digital currency for interbank settlements. What's your view on this? Do you see it as progress?
Yes, I think that this crisis, which is initially a health-related crisis, but is becoming, unfortunately, a financial crisis, is going to accelerate the first the experimentation and then the adoption of digital currencies. I mean, we have seen, and I was part of some panels and debates in the because I'm originally French, as probably most of you can tell by my accent, but I was part of some panels with banks and insurance companies in Paris at the Center of Financial Innovation back in 2016. So there have been already interest. There has been interest in digital currencies in general and cryptocurrency for a long time in France. France was the first country that allowed a very specific asset class, which are the municipality bonds, to be on the blockchain. And we could see that there was some interest. But obviously the fact that they make this announcement now, that they make this call for expertise, and we hope that some of our actually investees will participate to this call. And I've already talked to to one of them, which is in Argentina, and their main headquarters is actually in Gibraltar, IOV Labs. So these kind of companies are going to participate, bring expertise to central banks, and see how central banks can actually use digital currency technology for basically creating a digital euro, or maybe in China, a digital yuan. There have been a lot of articles around China's central bank, People's Bank of China. So they're looking at experimenting with this, and I think that this crisis is accelerating this pace of interest and experimentation in this field. Yes.
So I've been hearing a little bit about this new term, DeFi, which is decentralized finance. Can you just explain to us what decentralized finance actually means?
Yes, sure. So originally, when we started looking at the blockchain sector and crypto, it was all focused on what we could call transactional applications of blockchain. So in 2013, 14, there was not much talk about blockchain. It was more about remittances, wallets, exchanges, sending value through the blockchain, and obviously indirectly through the internet. This kind of internet of value was basically one of the first applications and one of the first goals of people using cryptocurrencies. Now this has evolved in all kinds of directions, because we talked about supply chain traceability. There are many applications of blockchain technologies today. Many companies, large companies, looking at that. But if we go back to the core of cryptocurrencies, decentralized finance is very relevant, because it's basically finance using decentralized applications. And when we say decentralized applications, it means that when you do a loan, for example, a lending platform, you don't need to rely on a central authority to decide if this person is eligible, if this person, it's all indirect, peer-to-peer, and it's all coded, it's all programmed, so that you go on a DeFi, what we call a DeFi platform, for example, for lending, and there are many out there already live, and you see interest rates. And basically my own definition of decentralized and decentralized applications is that they are function focused, they are function centric. We're not worried about too much about the brand, about let's say the marketing around the platform. We're worried about the core function that this platform is going to perform, and the fact that usually these are non-custodial. So basically, you keep the funds, or you may need to bring a collateral, or you may need to do something that's called in cryptocurrency staking. So of course, at that time, you may relinquish the custody of the funds, but normally, as long as you can, these applications are trying to, as long as they can, they're trying to provide non-custodial services whereby you keep control of your assets, of your funds. And this is working very well. I mean, the numbers we're talking about, more than $1 billion for certain platforms. I mean, we're talking about currently one of the most successful adoption of cryptocurrency and blockchain right now. So, and we see a good future for this, especially very positive on the fact that it helps financial inclusion. It means that people who normally don't have access to financial services through decentralized finance may do that. So think about everything you can do with finance: loans, mortgages, short-term credit, factoring, letters of credit, remittances, of course, cross-border transactions. Think about that in a decentralized way.
Okay, so just to sort of wrap it up, as we now face the big possibility of a global recession, we've seen Bitcoin have a bull run end of last year, beginning of this year. Do you think that due to its maintaining the price for a few weeks during the worst time of the crisis, do you see that it's an alternative to gold? People talk about crypto is the new gold all the time. What's your view?
Yes, I will give it to you, but let me just put some light, because it's getting darker here.
Okay.
I just got to stop the video 2 seconds.
Okay, no worries.
I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still here, just putting some light so that you can see me better while the day is where the light is changing in this part of the world.
It's the beauty of virtual. Don't worry. We're all getting round to it.
Okay, so let me see if that, that's better. Okay, yeah. So yes, I mean, it was quite interesting because the first thing that we saw is the fact that when the stock markets of the world start being impacted by the COVID-19 crisis, and they started going down very fast, like of course the Dow Jones index, etc. We saw Bitcoin price go down. I mean, first of all, I was not surprised because that happened before. The correlation between Bitcoin and stock exchanges, stock markets has happened before. It's not something completely new. And as you said, I think what is very important is to see that the price reaches a certain level, which at the time, I mean, we're talking about March 2020. If we were comparing to March 2019, actually, you know, it was a very decent. It was not a major decrease of the price. The major decrease of the price only happened between February 2020 and the next 2-3 weeks. So I think Bitcoin is shown that it is resilient today. But of course, what is very interesting is also to see the interest coming from buyers fearing inflation. I mean, we all know that the American government is pushing for a very important stimulus, which of course is needed to counter, you know, the lockdowns, the confinements, etc., the loss of economic activity. So this is going to bring a lot of money on the markets. People are looking at, exactly as you said, as gold and at Bitcoin. I mean, personally, I have a bias for Bitcoin, basically because I think, first of all, it's easier to find, it's easier to transfer, but I'm, you know, I have no problem with gold being as well a resilient asset. But the great thing is that we're seeing Bitcoin becoming a real proper asset class. I mean, there was in the news the fact that one of the Goldman Sachs funds, one of them, of course, is actually moving a lot of assets towards Bitcoin. We see very large companies like Fidelity and very large banks around the world actually going to Bitcoin, understanding that there is potential pressure on other assets class, of course stocks, but now of course the US dollar as well. So in order to stop the erosion of value and not suffer too much from the possible inflation that's going to come, they are big funds, and the fund managers of these large funds looking at Bitcoin. I'm optimistic. I think more or less most of the, I mean, a lot of the people in the crypto space right now optimistic that it's going to 2020 is going to end on a very positive and much higher price of Bitcoin than where it is today.
Okay, so we have a Q&A box and we've had a question for you, Eddy, from Lisa. Do you want to go ahead and ask the question, Mark? Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, sure. 1 second. Yeah, so the question from Lisa is, cross-jurisdictional and regulatory challenges across nations wanting to adopt blockchain payments and fintech solutions is holding areas like Africa back. How can we advance that? It impacts global and scalable solutions like education.
Okay, well, yeah, good question, Lisa. Well, I mean, the regulatory issue has always been a central issue in crypto, and as you rightly say, the first thing is cryptocurrencies have been seen as different type of assets around the world by different institutions. Sometimes, like for example in the US, Bitcoin can be classified as different things by different institutions of the US, be it like the tax office or the CFTC or the SEC, etc. And of course, as soon as you go cross-border, you have to be mindful of the regulations of different countries. So actually, it's a great thing that you know, we're talking here through Startup Grind Gibraltar, because Gibraltar has been at the forefront of looking at this problem and try to solve them. And I, you know, kudos to Gibraltar to see very early on that this is indeed a new asset class, and this is something that has to be regulated, and that's why they have the distributed technology license, and they have had it now for more than 2 years, maybe nearly 3. So they are governments, they are jurisdictions where they're taking this proactively, and they are trying to find solutions to the regulatory problems. Now, when it comes to Africa, actually, I was supposed to speak at the conference in Kenya, in Nairobi, with some people I know very well, having a blockchain incubator there. Unfortunately, this couldn't happen, as we all understand why, because nobody's really traveling these days, and hopefully we'll do it as well, maybe virtually soon. But yes, I'm aware that Africa can be a great potential for financial inclusion for cryptocurrencies. I mean, the numbers that I've seen are incredible. The fact that I think by 2030, if I'm not wrong, a very huge part of the young population in the world is going to be African people. I think there is tremendous potential and in terms of population and demographics, tremendous potential in Africa. And I hope that Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain companies, I mean, we all know that Jack Dorsey was looking at Africa through Square, are really going to help that area, and as well, of course, educational initiatives there as well. I'm all for it, and hopefully we're going to do things there with some of our investee companies.
So we have a second question from Lisa, but we're just going to answer a question from Paul. He has quite a few interesting things to say, so go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no worries. It's quite a long question, so bear with me. But from Paul.
Paul Estengo.
Paul Estengo. Eddy, I've been reading the Blockchain for Europe response to the EU consultation on blockchain that has very recently been published. Have you had a chance to read it, and what are your impressions? They seem to be suggesting that a principles-based solution is best. That is the route taken by Gibraltar with the DLT providers' regulatory framework. So should we consider this as further endorsement of the work we've so far?
I've seen the headlines. I haven't read the whole in depth, but I know the main ones, and through some friends who are lawyers in the space who have been involved in this process as well. I mean, the whole consultation. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think it's good news that Europe is looking at it on a principle basis. I think, yeah, I mean, to be honest, even before this response, my feeling was that Gibraltar was on the right track. So I hopefully, this is a confirmation that it is. But yes, I agree that the principle-based, and I also saw separately Minister Isola's comments on market manipulation in cryptocurrencies. And I think that's also a great angle to look at things. I think this is a market that has evolved rapidly. And in some instances, not all of them, but in some instances, as we all know, it's kind of what we called before the Wild West. I mean, there are some countries and there are some players that are playing by their own rules. And I think in order for this asset class to be taken seriously, we need the type of work that Gibraltar has been doing, and we need the, let's say, regulation where both innovation is not stifled, where people can actually, entrepreneurs can actually try things and innovate and create services that we all want and we all need. I mean, this kind of crisis shows that we cannot rely only on the financial tools that we have available until now. Let's say the legacy tools that we have. So I think it's a great time for accelerating the trend towards having people having more tools, more convenient tools, and let innovation come. So they're glad to see this is a current response.
So I think the last question, Eddy, and we're going to wrap it up here so that we can interact a little bit more on the rest of the session with the participants, is again from Lisa. I think, Mark, if you just want to.
Of course. Yeah, just from Lisa as well. Have you seen a trend of first-time investors in cryptocurrencies seeking independent security?
So I'm not exactly sure what independent security means in this context. Maybe Lisa can tell us a bit more. But if the question is around the fact that people are looking, for example, well, obviously, one very important thing at first for anyone who's not familiar with cryptocurrency is that no one is supposed to hold your assets for you. I mean, especially at first when you start looking at cryptocurrencies and how it works technically, and hardware wallets, etc. I mean, the first thing is you have to learn, you have to get educated in this, and you have to do it in a way that you don't lose any assets, obviously. So it is a system where you rely a lot on your own ability to keep your password safe, basic cybersecurity measures. But of course, we're talking about money and assets, so it's very important to do it very well, because if you lose what we say, you lose your keys, you lose your money, your bitcoins or your cryptocurrencies. So if we're talking about independent security in terms of cyber security, that's one thing. Now, if we're talking about independent security financially, such as owning assets which are not tied to government or political decisions, monetary policies, etc., that's something else, which of course Bitcoin is useful for that as well. And if you talk as well maybe about insurance, insurance that can protect your crypto, that's another angle we can approach. So I'm not exactly sure where independent security here is.
Yeah, I think Lisa added something to do with dissatisfied with government. So I think you kind of touched on that. So thank you so much, Eddy. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us such interesting insights into the industries that you're so familiar with. I'm just going to open it up to participants now and ask them to put their hand up if they'd like to share with us what kind of changes they've had to make to their business model to adapt to current circumstances. So any of the participants would like to share that with us, just please put your hand up and we'll unmute so you can share. We're also going to ask people things like what type of partnership and cooperation they'd like to engage with other businesses to improve their services. What kind of business resources do you think that you could make use of at this time? How could you improve your company's website, online presence? What is out there to assist in the remote work? And how can you plan to secure your business and your employees' future? So I'm just looking here to see if anybody wants to answer anything. Okay, we have Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, how you going? All the way from Australia.
I can see, well done.
Yeah. Look, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm normally based in the UK and obviously I ducked home for about 4 weeks and it looks like I'm going to be here for 6 to 9 months. So what's been interesting though, from my perspective, and I think I was doing a lot of work in the UK before I ducked home, was with the SME sector, the small to medium enterprise sector.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found quite profound is obviously in the last 4 weeks when we've had an exponential change in the way business is being conducted, that for the first time we're starting to see an appetite for change in that sector. How do they get engaged with the technology and its opportunities? So one of the companies that I advise to, which is out of Dubai, which is called DistiChain, huge big B2B e-commerce platform, which for the first time will engage SMEs, can be anonymously if they wish or branded if they wish. It's up to them and depends on the vertical. But for the first time, given the fact that we are now all working remotely, we're seeing a significant shift in the market with SMEs now wanting to actively engage with the technology and how it can support them in areas like trade, global supply chain, etc. And of course, one of the key elements to that is education. So, it's honestly, I don't think I've ever been busier in my entire life than in the last month. And I've been speaking widely with a lot of people in this space, and we're all saying the same thing. It's the world will never go back to what it was a month ago. But I'd be interested to hear what everybody else's views in terms of Europe is, particularly since it's exited, with Brexit. What the SME market is starting to feel in that jurisdiction, because normally I've got my finger in the pulse because I'm there, but I'm a long way away from it. But I'm feeling it here, and certainly in the UK.
Okay, well, anybody would like to take the question from Lisa? Maybe Paul, if you're around, we'll let you have a bit of a say. No? Well, maybe Mark, would you like to participate in Lisa's question?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to add to it a little bit. I mean, I do think it is an interesting point in general that businesses have been, I guess, forced into a position where they need to use digital technologies and use and maybe adapt their processes and their way of doing things, which I guess normally is quite convenient to just push to the back of the pile. But I mean, I think it's been really interesting from my point of view to see this is how this has actually accelerated a lot of this in all different size businesses, from basic level to even sort of more wider scale things. So I mean, definitely from what I'm seeing, yeah, there's been a real desire for businesses to develop in those key areas and I guess go through, I hate to use the word digital transformation, but to go through a kind of forced digital transformation has been really, I think, positive in a lot of ways. And I agree with Lisa's comment that the world is probably not going to be the same after this in a digital and business sense. And in a lot of ways, I think it's actually very positive.
Yeah, I mean, I would just, yeah, go on, Eddy, sorry, please.
Sorry, Denise. No, I just wanted to add that what this makes me think about is the digital divide, because we see that different people are affected differently with this crisis, and the fact that some people, that SMEs are obviously relying on labor. I mean, of course, it makes a huge difference if you're building something or transporting something or providing services to people in restaurants and things like that, as compared to providing digital services already or something that can be done through work. So I think, unfortunately, the digital divide right now is extremely strong and wide, and it has a big impact on people's lives. So so let's not forget that, unfortunately, a lot of SMEs are going to struggle or basically shut down in the next few weeks, because they are providing services which need bodies and need people to go around, or their employees to go around. So I think just the digital divide factor for me is very important here, and hopefully in the next few years we will, companies will be more ready for it and realize that it can be a life or death situation for their company. That's all, Denise. We don't hear you. You need to unmute.
Thanks. So Lisa, thank you so much. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that. I was just going to add. Yeah, go ahead.
There was one thing that I was going to add, and it's one thing that is, it's also been a common conversation, and I agree with you, Eddy, that I think there's a lot of businesses that will never reopen. But one conversation that I've been having fairly regularly in the last 2 or 3 weeks is, how do we commence the education process around the digital footprint and the digital ID that a business has in terms of their data, so they can actually, businesses can actually start to diversify their revenues, their revenue streams, because that's obviously one thing that's been made evident. I mean, here in Australia, you've got businesses that overnight have had to change from being a face-to-face business to, an online business or whatever. And one of the, broad discussions that this technology can empower is, how do we provide those skills and that opportunity for some of these smaller businesses. And when I say smaller business, I'm still talking, $20, $30 million businesses. They're still small. They're still, categorized as SMEs, but they don't actually, or they haven't actually captured their data footprint, which can in fact diversify their revenue streams so that they are less exposed and more resilient in the future, because this will not be the first and the last time something like this occurs. So I guess, how can we embrace this technology to give diversity of revenue and diversity of streams of revenue to some of these businesses that they're not aware of, that, that we all know do exist?
Okay, so Eddy, do you want to?
Well, I agree, but unfortunately, I agree with what you're saying, Lisa. The only thing is that it takes time. If you look at blockchain, for example, it's not only a technological choice. It can be an ideological choice. It can be a company culture choice. You need a shift in mentality sometimes, especially from moving from a very heavily centralized to a decentralized structure. So I agree it's going to push for it, and people will realize that this is a necessary process. The only thing now we're going to see is how long this process is going to take, and hopefully a lot of the companies will be more resilient when when the next crisis comes, because I think people basically understand that this unfortunately is probably not the last virus we see that we don't really know how to deal with. So the other thing is, these companies have to again are affected differently, and there was a very interesting kind of chart matrix I saw in the press recently, where they were showing the type of companies and how they can adapt to this current situation. And they were doing like what you were saying, Lisa, they're moving from face-to-face to online, etc. Or what Denise is doing today, which is, I usually enjoy very much being in Gibraltar and talking to people there, but this time we're doing it online. But for some companies, of course, it's going to be much quicker than others. So it is a challenge, and it is part of an important education process.
Okay, so I think if anybody would like to come on and introduce themselves online, we're going to just give you the opportunity to say what you do and who you are, and then maybe just wrap up the session. So if you would like to, just put your hand up and we'll allow you to just give a short introduction with if you feel like you would like to say something. But I think, it's been a really great session. I think we have someone. Yeah, hi. Okay. Oh, for some reason I can't. Nope. Right, let's try Paul, I think. There we go. Angelique? No. Here we go, we're having it.
Hello. Hi, Denise.
Hello, how are you?
Surviving.
Good, good. Nice to have you here, Angelique. Thanks for joining.
No problem. Yes, it's good to see some familiar faces.
Definitely. So tell us a little bit about your business and how you're coping with it all, Angelique.
Well, obviously recruitment is literally chopped at the neck rather than the knees. We are face-to-face in general business. We're talking to people from, relatively all across Europe, some worldwide, dealing with online gaming, but obviously nobody can relocate. People that have relocated haven't been able to start due to businesses adjusting to the new sort of regime. Some have overcome it quite quickly, and they've got around the issues of onboarding people online, but others haven't. But it's it's pretty tough, and I'm just taking the time to readdress, looking at the business as a whole, looking at the website, looking at how we interact. Whilst I've got some roles, I've got plenty of time. I'm 90% capacity probably, so plenty of time to address things that I've never had time to do before. So that's what we're doing, and staying with candidates and clients, obviously.
So I think that's a really important part of how people are adapting as well. I think they're preparing themselves to see what's coming after, re-educating and upskilling. Co-director here, Margaret, is also somebody who recently went freelance, and she has now had to dive into studies to kind of reskill or upskill what she's doing to prepare. So thank you for joining, Margaret.
Yeah, it's been interesting time, especially in my industry. I'm a therapist, so I work with people directly. I can't work online, so it's been very difficult time. But I got amazing feedback from my customers who are texting and checking out, they're promising to go back after we can again continue the normal life. So I have a good feelings about it, but I know that for businesses like mine and my colleagues, it will be quite difficult time the next few months to rebuild the customer base and be back. It's going to take a big effort. So,
well, it's a positive note. I think we're all looking forward to when life goes back to normal, but there will be things that we're going to learn from the experience and also be able to develop a lot further. So I think that kind of wraps up our first SG virtual session. I hope that you all enjoyed it. I'm afraid there is no drinks and canapes this time. However, I'd encourage you to grab a glass of wine because I know I need it after this. I was so apprehensive, but I'm so glad to see that we did it, and we'll be delivering more. So hope to see you again. Thank you for joining. Thank you to our sponsors, and have a great rest of the week. And please send us an email and reach out to us if you think there's anything that we can help you with, or just have a chat. We're here for the community, and we really appreciate everything. So goodbye, and see you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.